other men and women that are locked up in prison for crimes they did not commit.
It's a disgrace that now we are not allowed, we're afraid to walk in the street. We're afraid to drive our cars. We're afraid to be in our house.
They beat my son and made him confess to a murder which he didn't do. They beat him naked with no clothes on. How can you beat a 15-year-old kid like this? And you lie and get away with it.
They beat him, they threatened him that if he did not cooperate, that they would take his pregnant bitch and put her in prison. They kidnapped our loved ones.
The police officer that murdered my son, he had already shot him 4 times. He was laying on the ground. And you could see the officer walking up behind him, shooting him in the back.
George Hernandez. He murdered my son, Ronald Johnson, Granny Man. We fought to get that dash cam footage released, and when they released it, it shows nothing what they said happened on that night of October 12, 2014. It showed my son running for his life. My son fell right there where that tree is planted at. Then they planted a gun on him. Yes, they did.
The brave voices of Chicago police crime victims and survivors are no longer a cold statistic. They have become, along with the courageous black youth uprisings leading the way, the fuel and fire of a growing movement for justice against police crimes. To stop police crimes, a systemic change is needed. One that empowers communities to hold cops accountable, one that undoes the current closed loop of police power by making the police accountable to the people they're serving. As we know, this unjust racist system fails by design. We need community control of the police to create a systemic shift of power to oppress communities of color and the working class.
Here's how the loop of power in the policing system currently flows. We will go through its parts one by one. First, the mayor. The mayor is a major player appointing the chief administrator for the Civilian Office of Police Accountability known as COPA, the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, the police board, and negotiating the police union contract. COPA. All police complaints go through COPA, the sole intake funnel for the system. In 2019, 61.3% of all complaints were directed back to the Chicago Police, to their Bureau of Internal Affairs, where most are disappeared. Chicago Police Department's Internal Affairs, which is more cops investigating cops, receives the majority of complaint cases that funnel through COPA. It totally lacks data transparency, making it impossible to track complaints, especially in cases of sexual assault. Most complaints sent to Internal Affairs are, quote, administratively closed, meaning purged. Of the total cases retained by COPA and not passed on to Internal Affairs, only 5.2% were sustained and recommended disciplinary action. A majority of COPA cases are categorized as concluded without finding and purged from the system. The police superintendent is the highest rank in the Chicago Police Department. The police board selects candidates for superintendent, but the mayor ultimately decides who gets to stay on the job. All recommended actions for disciplining a cop that come from COPA have to go through the superintendent. The the superintendent can rebuff any complaint that survives COPA's purging. The Police Board. The Police Board has 9 members chosen by the mayor. They have 3 main powers. 1, they assist the mayor in choosing a superintendent. 2, they write the rules for what the cops do on the streets. 3, they are the only ones who can fire cops, which they almost never do. The few cases that make it through COPA and the superintendent end up at the police board, where they are most likely finally disappeared. The Fraternal Order of Police, or the FOP, is a racist police gang masquerading as a union that exists solely to protect police. The FOP contract is negotiated between the FOP and the mayor without any community input. COPA's investigating procedures must be within the confines of the police union contract, which lays out protections for police that shield them from investigations and assist in police cover-ups. The contract includes restricting investigations into anonymous claims, giving officers information about their investigation ahead of time, allowing officers to amend statements after viewing evidence and to speak with colleagues immediately after a shooting incident, a 5-year statute of limitations on investigating police misconduct. The FOP has maintained the Chicago Police Code of Silence and defended torturers and murderers like John Burge and Jason Van Dyke. And finally, the Cook County State's Attorney Office. The state's attorney works hand in hand with the Chicago Police Department. Between late 2007 and mid-2020, there have been 481 police shootings with over 160 people killed by Chicago police. Only 1 cop has ever been charged in Chicago for murdering a civilian, and only after the city was forced to release the video of Laquan McDonald's execution by killer cop Jason Van Dyke. He was sentenced to only 6 years and 9 months in prison and is only expected to serve half that time. No cop has ever been prosecuted for torture. The Cook County State Attorney's Office has refused to prosecute police crimes, and it finds nearly all police killings, quote, justified.
What we need to understand is the existing closed power loop must be systematically and permanently undone. The issue has always been about power. The concrete solution is for the people. They have the power to control the police. Our ordinance will bring fundamental change in the systems that deploy and sustain police terror in Black, Latinx, poor, and working class communities. We cannot leave change up to the system that created the problem. In order to end police crimes, we need community control over the police, where we, the people, have the final authority over key elements of policing, with power over all parts of the policing system, from COPA to the police board. It will control the police budget, rule book, and discipline. We need the people to decide who polices our communities and how our communities are policed.
All power to the people! 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 All power to the people!
It would give the community control over the police department through a referendum and through the ordinance itself. We are tired of being removed from this process. Call your alderperson and tell them to support ECPS.